This is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in an interview. Jim Jones threatened to walk out of a paid interview, an interview he was paid to be at, because the interviewer had the audacity to ask him questions.
Just kind of just take it back from the beginning and just get to know you a little bit better than, you know what I'm saying, maybe you haven't talked about before, man. You know, so, I mean, I think everybody knows you're from Harlem, man. So what was it like for you growing up in Harlem?
Everybody don't know that. We don't know Jim Jones is from Harlem. That's still up for question. Now, Jim Jones is savvy enough to understand where this conversation is going. You can even see by the look on his face, he's already a little bit annoyed because Harlem got brought up twice. And he could predict exactly what the line of questioning is going to lead to. You can look at Jim Jones in his face and see he's already annoyed, bruh. His face is scrunched up, it's screwed up. He's giving attitude because Cam Capone started off the interview asking, where you from? Where'd you grow up? How did you grow up? And if you know anything about the Jim Jones lore, you know that's a very sensitive issue. Cam Capone is just trying to do a good interview, tell the life story of Jim Jones. But Jim Jones is a grade A Igga, all right? An Igga who hasn't quite evolved yet. So when you're dealing with people like Jim Jones, they usually have unresolved trauma that they take out on everybody. So in this case with Cam Capone, he's just trying to conduct an interview, not really understanding that he's breaking a cardinal sin when it comes to interviewing Jim Jones. You don't ask any questions that's going to force Jim Jones to talk about the Bronx, because Jim Jones don't like to talk about the Bronx.
Harlem's cool. Harlem was like a playground. We spent more time outside than we did inside. Between my Aunt Viola, who raised me on the east side of Harlem since like the age of 6. And then I spent my later years on the west side of Harlem by the age of 13. In between there, I was going to school back and forth from the Bronx.
Jim Jones appeared visibly annoyed when he has to mention the Bronx and has to break down all of his Harlem roots and how he's tied to Harlem and how at 6 years old he was here and 13 years old he was here, went to school here. He seems visibly annoyed because A, he understands where this conversation is going and he's gonna have to break this down further and get real in depth. So he's already anticipating having to really break down the Harlem roots some more, and bringing up the Bronx annoys him, right, for obvious reasons. Now, the reason why he appears annoyed is because of what Cameron did earlier this month.
It's a couple of things, because we've been on vacation, and a lot of niggas been talking since I was off vacation. We're going to start with Jomo. We'll start with Jomo. And you are a guardian angel and designer. You're from the Bronx, bro. You are not from Harlem. Why do you keep thinking that you are from Harlem, bro? You are not from Harlem. I did not grow up with you, man.
Cameron commented on his podcast with millions of views and hundreds of thousands of subscribers and saying that Jim Jones is from the Bronx, not from Harlem, is the biggest blow he could have delivered to Jim Jones, because Jim Jones' entire identity is Harlem.
I'm from the middle of the piece, right in. I had them billies throwing bees up in.
Because of how Jim Jones reps and claims Harlem and puts it on his back so viciously, we wouldn't expect anything else but Jim Jones being from Harlem. I mean, he was with Cameron and Maze, and we, all our lives, were told Jim Jones is from Harlem. He's the ambassador of Harlem. So when Cameron comes out and states, first off, you're not from Harlem, that was the biggest news headlines that come from this beef. Even the Breakfast Club, when discussing the Cameron and Jim Jones beef, they wasn't talking about what Jim Jones said on Justin LA Boy's podcast. They were talking about Jim Jones got exposed for not being from Harlem, or is Cameron capping? That was it. So Cameron would even expound and say, hold up, bruh. From Harlem is it's pretty small, meaning everybody knows each other. We all went to the same elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We all knew each other since yay high. But we didn't know you, right? You came around later on in life.
I did not grow up with you. Contrary to what you believe, I did not grow up with you. You are from the Bronx. Did your grandmother live? Did your grandmother live in Harlem? Yes. Did you come see her? Yes. Did I see you time to time? Yes. I did not grow up with you.
To be fair to Jim, Cameron just saying you're not from Harlem doesn't really prove you're not from Harlem. Now, Cameron did try to expand on his point by pulling up old freestyles and old videos of him freestyling in the streets of Harlem, and he was like, "Are you here? You're not in any of these videos." Well, to be fair, like Jim Jones could very well be from Harlem and not be in any of those videos, right? You don't have to be everywhere they are. But Cameron will pull up those videos to sort of prove a point to the audience that, yo, when me and Mace was rocking, when me and all the original dudes you've seen around me that Jim Jones, was a part of later on in life, when you see all of us, just understand, bruh, that me, Mace, and everybody else, we were day ones. We knew each other from elementary school. Jim Jones is the outsider who came from the Bronx later on in life. Now, Cameron will say that Jim Jones came around once it was very clear that they was about to get signed because they was really hot in the streets. Jim Jones sort of ingratiated himself with them by offering them a free house to stay.
Are you at any of these places? No. You was not there, man. You wasn't there. This is what happened, how Jomo got cool with us. Them freestyles that we just showed y'all, go Google them, have fun with them when you get time. We were popping. It wasn't no internet. Mace, myself, Big L, even though Mace and Big L on the same page, Bloodshed, my man Herb McGruff, we were super duper popping in the street prior to the internet. Everybody knew we was about to get a record deal. Everybody knew this, nigga. It wasn't no secret. Basically, you heard our freestyles, and you came up to me one day when I was chilling in front of the house, you said, and this word to my dead mother, "Yo, man, I heard the freestyles, y'all killing shit. Yo, you know my grandmother died. If y'all wanna come by and just hang out, y'all could, y'all more than welcome." We like, all right, Jomo, thanks. It didn't really make sense at the time.
So Jim Jones is already aware that people are questioning exactly when he grew up in Harlem. Was he born in Harlem? Was it at 6 years old? Was you in the Bronx at 6? Where were you preteens, after preteens? So he already knows, like, him being from Harlem is already in question. So when Cam Capone starts to ask certain questions, he starts to realize the direction this is going.
Now, I've seen you talk about before, man, you had friends who were real big in the crack era, man. Like, what was that like in Harlem during that time? Like, how bad was it?
The crack era? Well, for me, the crack era started in the Bronx. As much as I can remember, from maybe the age of 5, 6.
I don't know if Cam Capone is doing this on purpose, but these questions are set up so perfectly to make a ninja who lying sweat. If Jim Jones is lying, these questions were designed to make you sweat. When you ask something as specific as, yo, you talk about, you have friends during the crack era. How was the crack era during that time in Harlem? Not in New York. How was the crack time in New York? No, how was it in Harlem specifically? So now Jim Jones have to really be there in that particular time frame to really give specifics, right? So he owns up to it and said, hey, okay, I was in the Bronx at that time. Okay, cool. But the questions doesn't stop. It keeps going, and you start realizing, bro, Jim is sweating bullets. Because I'm not saying Jim is lying, because honestly, I don't know the truth. But what I do know is a lie is harder to explain than the truth, right? When you lie, you have to really keep track of your stuff. Even with this Harlem and the Bronx stuff, he's already mixing it up because he said, he was in Harlem at 6. Then he says, he was in the Bronx at 5, 6. So it's already mixed up a little bit, right? But nonetheless, though, the questions continue and Jim Jones just keeps sweating.
Yeah, they do be putting everything on the internet nowadays, man. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say you went to Catholic school?
Yeah, for all my life.
I wouldn't have never expected that.
Yeah, I went to private kindergarten, then from 1st grade to 12th grade, I was in Catholic school. Went to St. Anne's, that was in Harlem, and then Carlton Hayes was in the South Bronx.
Again, I don't know if this is on purpose, bruh. Bro is hitting Jim Jones with the questions, bruh. They keep putting Jim Jones in the Bronx. So then eventually he asks a question, man, that makes Jim Jones realize the wrap-up is coming, right? The expose is coming. And Jim Jones just outright says, hey, bruh, we not doing this. I'm not doing this with you.
Okay. At what point do you meet Cameron and everybody?
That was early. That was like East Side, young age, preteen, something like that.
Now, going back and forth from Bronx and Harlem, you know, did you go back and forth from school there too? Or was it just, you just went to school in Harlem?
I went to school in Harlem.
Okay.
I lived across the street from the school I went to, from the elementary school I went to in Harlem. I lived with my Aunt Viola during the week, and on the weekends I would go back home to my mom's and my grandmother in the Bronx.
You know, what are things like when you get out of high school for you?
Things are fun. It's high school. Everything's still fun. I'm young. I'm having fun. Figuring it out. Hustling and having fun.
Okay. Now, you know, is the rapping popping yet? Is, you know what I'm saying, Mace and all that going on yet? Or are they still coming up?
I'm not going to sit here and do a discography, my brother. It's a little bit too much for me. And you ain't pay enough for that.
What? Yo, this don't look good for Jimmy, because if you're telling the truth, you should be able to sit down and answer questions about your life and go down in order. Because why else would he be interviewing you? Most people have an issue when somebody interviews them and all they ask them is about drama or about other people. The fact that this man is showing you enough respect that he's sitting you down and asking you about your life, some details like, yo, when did you meet Cameron? When did you meet Mace? Yo, when did you go to school? But when Jim says he meets Cameron on the east side earlier in life, and Cameron is saying, no, buddy, I ain't meet you until you were like a late teen, bro. Like, and you still wasn't living in Harlem with us. You was living in the Bronx, and you just came to Harlem because your grandmama had a house in Harlem. So is those discrepancies is making it uncomfortable for him to have the conversation. And like Cam Capone News just keeps on asking him innocent questions, but Jim Jones is taking those questions as if they're being asked in bad faith, because Jim Jones understands that you can't really answer these questions unless you are prepared if you're lying, right? But when Jim Jones is saying that he doesn't want to answer questions about his life during an interview, that's a red flag for me, right? So he tells Cam Capone, he's perfectly fine with Cam Capone asking him questions about other people and about like current events, but he don't want to talk about his life that he lived.
So if you got some other questions you want to ask, or you could erase all this shit and I could send you your money back. Either or.
Okay. I mean,
I understand what's going on and the plight of everything that's going on, and people want to know the history, but this ain't the way that you're not going to be able to get the whole Jim Jones or Jomo story for that, what you did. I thought this was some regular questions. Seemed like you trying to get everything up to every point, and that's not going to happen right now. So if you want to ask some questions, I'm cool with that, but you definitely can't ask me all these questions you're asking, my brother. So if you got some shit you want to ask, you better ask and get it off your chest, but I ain't going through this with you because you don't have enough money for that.
Jim Jones is trying to position this as, you don't have enough money for me to tell you everything about my life. Bro, it's an interview, right? Like, you don't go on Vlad TV after being paid to go on Vlad TV and expect for Vlad TV not to ask you about your life. Like, what else do you expect somebody to interview you about? Right? Like, I'm confused. No, I'm generally confused as to what Jim Jones expected to be interviewed about. If not about your life and your story, what is somebody talking to you about? Yo, we currently live in a culture, this like clip culture, where drama sells, I guess the F-ish sells, and talking about other people's sells, but Jim Jones is a legend. Interviewing Jim Jones just to ask him about other people or current topics or drama would be a waste of time. You want to learn about Jim Jones' life because Jim Jones is a hip-hop legend. He's a living legend. But because Jim Jones is currently, in a position where Cameron have sort of let the cat out the bag, he's currently in an awkward position where he can't really speak about his life and give timelines and exact dates, because if he do, then people can just go ahead and fact check it and say, well, you're not from Harlem, you're from the Bronx because this, and this. Or if you lie about the quote unquote timeline, they can go back and fact check the timeline and pull up certain receipts and stamps. So when you, right, like so like he's in kind of like a catch-22, and he wasn't expecting for, I guess, Cam Capone to be so diligent, right? Because he's expecting for a lot of these interviewers to be so drama-based that they don't even care about your life story, bro. They just want to know how you feel about Cameron, all right? He was expecting for them to get straight into, hey, bruh, Cameron just dissed you, man. How you feel about that, bruh? And then he go off on camera, and then that's enough for the interview. But when somebody actually wants to know your life story and you are afraid or ashamed of that, that's a problem.
No disrespect.
Okay, I mean, I could do more of a regular interview, but I definitely plan to ask about the Cameron drama. Is that stuff okay, or is that not
I
okay?
mean, you can ask what you want to ask. You heard? But I'm just telling you that if you think I'm going down the timeline of my life with you, it's not going to happen, my brother. You heard? You're going all the way back to high school. I respect it. And I understand your job as a journalist, but as a journalist, you ain't got enough coin for that. So, what you want to know else?
To me, that's sus. You don't want to talk about the timeline or give exact dates or time frames, but you want to be asked about other people. So you don't even like mind being asked about Cameron and Mace. You just don't want to be asked about when y'all met, how y'all grew up, where y'all met, like where did you live around that time y'all met. Things like that would sort of identify if you are from Harlem or not. I actually went through something similar, but mine was kind of the opposite. So how Jim Jones is claiming Harlem because I guess his grandmom stayed in Harlem and he was there sometimes. Mine was the opposite, where I wasn't claiming like somewhere I spent a couple years at, because I grew up in North Dakota. I spent the majority of my life in North Dakota. I spent the overwhelming majority of my life in North Dakota, right? So because I spent the overwhelming majority of my life in North Dakota, that's what I claim. However, when, I got some clout, I started to go viral, people who I went to like school with in Philly, they began to come out and say, oh no, he didn't grow up in North Dakota. I knew him for a couple of years when he was here in school. But yeah, I lived in Philly for a couple of years, but I spent the overwhelming majority of my life in North Dakota, right? So because I understand like how people can somehow be confused and swayed easily, I really don't want to jump to the conclusion with Jim Jones, right? Because for me specifically, it was when somebody asked me, where'd you grow up or where you from? I say North Dakota because that's where I spent the majority of my life at, right? Now, if they ask me, yo, did you ever live anywhere else? Or like, yo, like, where'd you spend this at and this at, this at? I'll bring it down gladly, right? Because I love talking about myself, right? But whenever I'm asked the question straight up, yo, where are you from? I say North Dakota because it's kind of like, I would expect that like this person don't really want me to break down everywhere I've ever lived. But in this case where Cam Capone is asking him to expound and he doesn't want to expound, to me, that's kind of sus, man. Y'all let me know in the comment section, man. Are you guys on Jim Jones' side or Cam Capone's side? Do you guys understand why Jim Jones threatened to walk out and end the interview? Let me know in the comment section, all right? And if you're still watching, click on this video somewhere on my screen here to find out how 50 Cent exposed that Big Meech snitched on this St. Louis kingpin. I'm going to see you guys in this video. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.